do you see?
Everything. That is my curse.
Two movies for the price of, well, it's on YouTube, so it's free, but it's still two.
This week, we went to go see Sherlock Holmes and The Girl to Try Dragon Tattoo.
Both excellent movies. Right away, we'll say it. So if you don't like our reviews, you can go out of them now. They're great movies. Go see them.
Yeah. We're gonna start, I guess, with Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows.
Which I think they say that in the film.
They do. I like this movie a lot more than the first Sherlock Holmes, and I like the first Sherlock Holmes a lot.
Yes. It definitely has more of like a Guy Ritchie feel than the last one did.
It does. This movie was on my radar, but I wasn't really looking forward to it because I kept seeing the trailers for it, and I knew like, well, that movie's gonna be solid. So
Yeah.
it just kind of went to the wayside, and then I remembered it, and we finally saw it,
And just to explain to our new audiences and to our old ones, we're gonna focus less on summarizing the films and more on just delving right into it, and we'll explain plot points when we need to when it comes to it, because these take a long time to edit.
I think that Sherlock Holmes is probably the most fun I've had seeing a movie this year.
Definitely. More so than Drive, which is something. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, Drive wasn't really fun.
But it was fun.
It was fun.
It was fun. But it wasn't fun.
Yeah. I think this is if you're looking for like pure enjoyment and you actually have like an average intelligence or above.
It's sort of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where they have that script with it's very intellectual sounding. But it's still, you can get a hold of what they're saying, and it's entertaining as well.
Well, I say it was divine providence what escaped us from jail.
And I'll say it was me being clever.
Well, how do you know it weren't divine providence what inspired you to be clever?
So it feels very much in the era of where they're speaking, but it doesn't come off as, pretentious sort of intellectual.
Yeah, it's more like fun, witty, intellectual.
Yeah.
You are not LaBeef.
Wit, definitely wit. Yeah. Wit.
I made the mistake of when the first Sherlock Holmes movie came out, I went into the theater with a notebook and a pen to take notes so I could actually follow the plot the first time I saw the movie, which I couldn't do with like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and I found it was like it was still a fun movie and it was smart, but it was just very not so Guy Ritchie-esque, and this definitely was more Guy Ritchie-esque, so...
Insert Brad Pitt talking in, incomprehensible.
Pikey language.
Do you like dogs? Dogs. What?
Yeah, dogs.
Dogs. Do you like dogs? Oh, dogs.
Guy Ritchie does an excellent, or at least, the writers and everything, did an excellent job of doing the Hollywood style of setting up something early in the story, glass on the floor, bare feet, but you don't know until later in the film that applies to it. So the people who are trained to see it, they'll notice, oh, that's going to play a part later in the story. This movie manages to make it so that they bring those things up, but the way they go about expositioning it, it's still enjoyable to watch. You don't, even with seeing these things happen in the beginning and expecting it to play a part later, you might forget. Or you just they throw you off so much that you're actually going to enjoy what's going to come from it. You're actually not going to see it happen. It still surprises you, which is pretty difficult to do nowadays. But they pull it off swimmingly.
Yeah, I think the other big strength that this movie had over the original was I know a couple of years ago Mark Strachan cloned himself 3 times so he could play the villain in 3 different movies in production at once, and I felt like he was not the greatest villain in the original.
He almost seemed like a placeholder villain.
He was, but I think like Moriarty in this one was definitely a much more worthy foe against Sherlock Holmes. So
you felt that's another thing. That's another thing about this movie. You feel that there are stakes in this movie. A lot of movies tend to be thrillers, but you don't think the stakes are that high, so you just sort of say, whatever. What happens if he loses? I don't give 2 poops. This one actually sets it up early in the story, and it helps catapult the whole story to be more engrossing overall.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Also, in the original, I'm sorry, I'm drawing back to the original. The final showdown was like a physical battle. In this game, it is actually an intellectual battle of the wits, but it has just the same level of tension that a physical battle would. And I think that plays more into Sherlock Holmes' character and Moriarty and everything. Like the whole situation, and yeah, as you said earlier, there are stakes, and they are high.
Speaking of the mental aptitude of it all, the movies were... The original one they didn't do it quite as much of. This movie they did more of, where they showed what was happening, and then something would out of nowhere happen, and they go and explain how Sherlock Holmes had planned this from that point. In this movie, they do the sort of similar thing, but they embellish it more. They have his plans, he explains them, and they do them. Sometimes he says that that's what he did, and they don't really go back and show you. But sometimes, out of the blue, you think they're screwed, but it turns out they have this whole flashback that tells you... You may think it's a Deus Ex Machina, but it fits more with the character because it surprises you.
It fits more in a way that it seems like, realistically he was able to pull this off. The movie just chose not to show you that until a flashback, and then he explains it. It's not so much like a Deus Ex Machina where he just pulls it out and he's like, well, I did all this and I win.
Yeah, they explain it when it seems like it might be too ridiculous, which is something that going back, even though I do love The Dark Knight, going back, that's one of the problems I had with that movie was that the Joker, I'm pretty sure in the movie he says he's not a man of planning.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan?
He doesn't really...
He's like a dog chasing a car.
I'm a dog chasing cars.
Yeah, he just kind of does it spur of the moment. Yet this man accounts for every single random act of chance.
I'm not a schemer.
Yeah.
Either he is just the smartest, wiliest bastard you've ever seen, or he's just the luckiest son of a bitch.
Okay, but we're talking about Sherlock Holmes now.
Yeah, I know.
Which we would highly recommend. Mm-hmm. Definitely go see this movie.
Yes. This movie, somehow, I think it trounces the original. Not to say the original is a bad movie in any way.
Yeah.
Excellent movie, but somehow this movie is able to pull off a more admirable effort.
See, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I read the first book and saw all the Swedish original movies, and I actually have to agree with you. This probably is the definitive version of
La Girl with Dragon Tattoo. Something that's notable right off the bat, I'm gonna go off on a weird, not tangent, but I'm gonna the weird aspect of it. The sound design. It's definitely a movie to reference for your sound design needs, because there's something about people were gonna compare Noomi Rapace's performance to Rooney Mara's on this character, but I think what is gonna make it in Rooney Mara's favor every time is gonna be the whole movie as a cohesive whole, especially the sound design aspect of it. Because with the original, she came off as a really strong, hardball type of character. And this one, it's sort of the different elements help to make her a vulnerable character who makes up for it by being just very, not standoffish, but very strong and doesn't, she doesn't like to let people in. And she's also, there's a reason that she has a dragon tattoo. Yeah. It's supposed to embody, it's supposed to be symbolic of her character type. Which in this movie with the sound design and the screams she does and stuff, it pulls that whole idea together.
They use the scream every time a train goes by. You can hear a scream underlying it.
Yeah.
That was also the thing when I first heard that David Fincher is making this movie. I was like, thank God it's him and not someone else. But then I heard Rooney Mara, the internet's written in ink, was gonna play Elizabeth Salander.
The internet's not written in pencil, Mark. It's written in ink.
See, I hadn't heard about her until this
She was in The Social Network. She was the girl Jesse Eisenberg was dating.
That was her?
Yeah.
Damn! That's weird!
But I was surprised. I was really surprised that she actually pulled it off because, to me, Noomi Rapace is Elizabeth Salander and Rooney Mara is just a girl who plays her in movies. But I think she did a good job. I just don't think that she really captured that aggression that, especially during the revenge rape scene, because there's the first two rape scenes and there's the revenge one. I didn't like get that same level of aggression from her that I got from Noomi Rapace's character. So I think she's still the definitive one for me. But I mean, if you haven't seen the original, I think Rooney Mara will probably really surprise you just with her performance.
And that intro.
The intro just. I mean, even all the music too. Just the original score was just fantastic.
Speaking of trailers, I like that one. Seemed more like David Fincher may have had a hand in that trailer because they used, you get those trailers where they show you a scene or song from the movie that's nowhere in the movie, not even in the credits or anything. This movie, right in the beginning, intro, they have the song and it still has that same feel as the trailer. The trailer's not like Clash of the Titans where it's a completely different feel.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if David Fincher had more of a hand in that trailer being made.
Yeah. The other thing worth mentioning about this movie is that it is 2 hours and 38 minutes long. That's not at all a bad thing. If you maybe saw the movie Zodiac and thought, oh, this is a really good movie, murder mystery type thing, but it's just a little bit too slow, this is the perfect movie for you because whenever it gets boring, there's just a scene of like...
pumping it up.
Yeah, pumping it up. And the pacing too. I mean, even the beginning, I mean, there's scenes that last like a few seconds and then it just jumps to a different part.
Yeah.
And, it is a very slow, I mean, it is them investigating a crime that happened 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And two characters coming together, they finally come together halfway through the story. So it feels like two separate movies and it collides, it becomes one, and it has multiple endings as well too.
That's the thing about the ending is where this is going to be very much more than the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's also the ending of this, the last 20, 30 minutes, that makes this movie, I think, better than the original because the original was a great movie, but it seemed that I didn't know what it was focusing on. If it was the mystery, if it was on Mikael Blomkvist, if it was on, whatever. If it was on the girl with the dragon tattoo, Elizabeth Salander. But it never seemed like it knew what to focus on. This movie, you get the definite feel that while these other events and people are important, that Rooney Mara, they have ooze in their names.
I know. I think it was a casting decision.
Rooney Mara's character is obviously the focus of this movie, which I think is it seemed like that was supposed to be the original intent, that she's supposed to be the main character, even if she was more like, even if they set up Mikael is more of the main character.
I think they do. I mean, it's a movie with like two protagonists, but they kind of join up, and it definitely works. The story, I think, is just like one of the best murder mystery stories told in recent years. So
that's another thing. If you read the book, this is more commenting on the story, but it's one of those. It's a good note for any film student to get a hold of. When you think of characters, never have just the whole movie be about bad things happening to them, that they're perfect in every way.
You basically can't have... The character flaws can't be bad things that happen to the characters. They have to be something that comes from within the character that they project onto the world that shows that they made a mistake or a bad decision. And that's what this movie sets up in the first scene.
Yeah.
It sets that up with both characters, and you know right away that they're flawed characters, but you feel for them because it shows the good and the bad sides of them.
It's nice because it gets it out of the way. You're not quite sure what's going to come of all this. So it really makes it, you're still sort of on the edge of your seat for it.
And anyone who's really stingy about brutal rape scenes, there are quite a few in this movie, but they are integral to the plot, not just of this movie, but to the second and third part.
My brother actually asked me that question when I went to see it. He asked if they kept that scene intact, and I said yes. He said, thank goodness, because that is inherent to her character.
Yes.
That scene is integral. If they were to dumb that down or adulterate it or Americanify it or whatever, it would have completely taken away from her character as a whole. And I'm glad David Fincher
It does spend a lot of time with the nitty gritty details, but those details do come up, especially in the third part, which I hope that David Fincher continues with this. Overall, I was against this movie as a remake, but after seeing it, it definitely it stands on its own. And it's definitely worth seeing.